originally from South Africa. I'm 78 years old, and I've been living in Quebec for the last 45 years. I was born in the apartheid era of South African political life. It was difficult. I was sent very early on, quite ironically, to a Catholic private school run by the nuns, where I learned French, and that's why I know how to speak French, and learned to play the piano and had my early education there. And then we had to go to state schools that were segregated, and I went to an Indian girls' school. And then, of course, later on, at the end of high school, my father decided I had to be sent out of the country. So I was sent to England to do my A-levels, finish my first degree, and then I came back to South Africa after that. I was privileged enough to have escaped the difficult part of growing up in a segregated country with segregated lifestyle and political trauma. My father was a professor, so he had a lot of white professor friends, so we mixed with whoever were socially acceptable at the time. But within public institutions, you couldn't go into a post office, for example, and go into the white entrance. It was very difficult. You had to go into the black entrance. So all that was part of the fabric of South African society. Going as a teenager to England was a little difficult. And after I finished my A-levels, I went to university in Birmingham. And then, of course, I went back to South Africa and did a first degree in languages, which was my forte, French, English, philosophy. And then I went to France and did my master's in France. So by that time, I had become quite international, if you want to call it that. And it was not so difficult going back to South Africa, but it was very difficult leaving South Africa for good, which is what I did to come here. Because I was quite happy living in England. We were living in England. My husband was working at a very lovely country hospital outside London. And I think I had family there. My sister lived in England, and I felt comfortable. And then getting uprooted again to come here was not easy in the beginning. But once I came to Quebec, I felt very comfortable because I was able to use my French. And then I worked as a translator, and then I got an amazing job working at the French Lycée. And I never looked back. I never looked back. I would not have stayed in South Africa. That was the time when Mandela was taken to Robben Island. That was the time when some of my university friends were taken into custody and never heard of after that. I couldn't see myself bringing up a child in apartheid South Africa. So my husband emigrated here in 1972, and I followed with a 4-month-old baby in 1973. When we came to Quebec, there was, of course, upheaval in the political system. There was the agitation about the referendum, French rights, and people being very vocal on both sides of the fence, as it were. And that's when the book, The Two Solitudes, really made an impact on my life. And then I became more aware of this rather difficult dichotomy between the French and the English in Quebec. But as newcomers, I don't think that it affected us that much. When you want to adapt and you want to fit in and you want to feel that you belong, then you've got to embrace or maybe overlook some of the things that normally you might not overlook. And to some extent, it may be unfair to say this, all that didn't really matter. Having come from South Africa where things were so much more dire, where really people had suffered such tremendous psychological and other trauma because of their beliefs and because of being the wrong color or being in the wrong place at the wrong time. To me, this seemed rather petty to begin with. I think recently the problems with Quebec's attitude to handling people of Muslim origin and the laws against wearing religious symbols makes me want to identify with them. Previously, I felt I was completely integrated into this society. Fine, I was an Anglophone, more of an Anglophone than a Francophone, and I didn't consider myself an allophone at all because I didn't fit into any of those categories. But I must say that when you talk about how Quebec has handled people who are of Muslim origin, it does become a them and us. I have never felt like an outsider. Not in Quebec, not in England, not in France. I think it's very much a question of a person's personality. How well you adapt, how well you integrate is part of who you are. And some people are more open, and I don't at all feel an outsider. Have never felt an outsider anywhere I've lived. Quebec is my home because my husband is at home here. And you create a home in an environment in which you are completely at ease. And we are at ease here, both of us. I don't say that at any stage we have felt threatened or ostracized or even uncomfortable, regardless of what goes on around us politically. So as a couple, as a family, we are happy here and have been happy here.